At UFC 316, we're going to see Kayla Harrison fight for a UFC title, as well as Patchy Mix making his UFC debut. And these were two of the best fighters that were at one point outside of the UFC, now coming in, making waves. Kayla Harrison 2-0, Patchy Mix kind of getting thrown into the rankings here with an opportunity to make a run at the title. And so I wanted to touch on the best MMA fighter in every weight class that is currently outside of the UFC. There's a ton of talent in some of these other promotions, and so wanted to put some respect on some of these men and women. So running through every single division, would love to hear your thoughts. If you have some honorable mentions or you disagree with my picks, let me hear it down below. But we are going to start off in the heavyweight weight class, and this one isn't all that tough. It is Francis Ngannou. You could make an argument that right now he is the best heavyweight in the world. He never lost his UFC title. He had that dominant performance against Stipe Miocic, beat Cyril Gane despite coming in with a very serious knee injury. I think at worst, he is a top 2 heavyweight right now with Tom Aspinall. We've seen him fight one time in the PFL. He had a round 1 ground and pound knockout against Renan Ferreira. And in the UFC, Francis Ngannou was just known for his striking, his huge knockout power. We saw in the Cyril Gane fight. Then in his PFL fight, he really went to the wrestling, and having the power on the feet that Francis does, along with the ability to take someone down, land those huge shots on the ground, his ceiling is very, very high. I'd obviously love to see him be more active in MMA, but he's kind of mixed into the boxing scene, but definitely still the best heavyweight outside of the UFC at this point, and potentially the best heavyweight in the world for MMA. Then moving down to the light heavyweight division, I'm going to go with Vadim Nemkov. Now, technically, he has moved up to heavyweight. I think he's had back-to-back fights up in the heavyweight division, but it's not like he had some sort of massive frame for light heavyweight and needed to move up because he was just incapable of dropping the weight. He's 6 foot tall with a 76-inch reach. It's not like he's a super tiny heavyweight, but I think if he wanted to, he could cut back down to 205. And if I were going to put him into the UFC, I think he'd have a much easier time competing with the light heavyweights as opposed to having to go up against a Tom Aspinall, a Cyril Gane, a Jailton Almeida, guys like that. I think he could potentially come in and he might be the best 205er in the world. I think him and Magomed would be a very, very competitive fight. He has a 19-2 pro record. His losses were in 2015 and 2016. One of those was to Yuri Prochazka. In the Bellator/PFL, he has an 11-0 record, has wins over Corey Anderson, Ryan Bader, 2 wins over Phil Davis, Yoel Romero, Bruno Capoloza. So he's a pretty well-rounded fighter, has found a ton of success in Bellator. Would obviously be interested to see how he matches up with some of the 205ers and the heavyweights in the UFC, but probably will have to wait to see if we ever get that. Then looking at middleweight here, I went with Johnny Eblen. He was the undefeated Bellator champion. He is 16-0 as a pro. He was 12-0 in the Bellator/PFL combination. 4 title wins, has wins over Gegard Mousasi, Anatoly Tokov, 2 wins against Leon Edwards' brother Fabian Edwards, and then also a win against Impa Kasanganay. He's currently scheduled to fight in July. He's someone who's really made it known that he wants to test himself in the UFC. So it's possible we get that within the next couple of years. Would definitely be interested to see how he fits into this middleweight division that is kind of undergoing some turnover at this point. So would be fun to throw him into that mix. Then at welterweight, definitely one of the best dudes in this entire video, we have Shamil Musayev. He has a 20-0-1 record as a pro. He won the 2024 PFL season, and in that run, he had a 4-0 record, obviously to win, but he finished all of his opponents, he finished 3 of them. So he knocked out Logan Storley, he knocked out Murad Ramazanov, who had a 12-0 record, then beat him again by decision, and then in the championship, he knocked out 17-0 Magomed Umalatov. So this welterweight division for PFL was very solid. 2 undefeated dudes with decent resumes heading into the PFL. He knocked out both of them. Logan Storley was a dude who had an interim title in Bellator, so pretty decent quality of competition and just ran through all of them. I think he would be a firm contender at welterweight. You look at the UFC, the welterweight division's kind of up in the air. I think he could go in and make some waves right away. Then moving down to lightweight, probably not a shocker here. We have Usman Nurmagomedov. He's the Bellator/PFL lightweight champion. 19-0 as a pro, 8-0 in Bellator/PFL. He has 4 title wins, super well-rounded, clean striker, manages range well, good kicks, 8 knockout wins, 6 submission wins, 5 wins by decision, also very young, only 27 years old. It's interesting because they've kind of talked about how he didn't want to go to the UFC when you had Khabib and Islam, reigning in the lightweight weight class. Now with Islam moving up, does that open some things up here for Usman if he wants to make a move? I'll also shout out Paul Hughes. These two had a great, very, very competitive fight. I'm not sure if it was early this year or late last year, but super competitive. Paul Hughes, a very solid honorable mention here. And then at featherweight, we have Saladin Parnasse. He is the KSW 2-division world champion, so he currently is holding the featherweight and lightweight titles. He has a 21-2 record as a pro. One of those losses was him actually trying to go up and become a triple champ up at 170. He has finishes in 7 of his 9 title wins, well-rounded, 6 knockouts, 7 submission wins, and just like Usman Nurmagomedov, still very young at 27 years old. I know he was a free agent, I think within the last year or so, chose to re-sign with KSW. It seems like the UFC kind of being stingy with some of these dudes, who have built up solid resumes outside of the UFC, which is unfortunate, but he's obviously kind of carved out his own lane here in KSW, has been super successful. I think the best featherweight outside of the UFC. You also could give some shout outs to some of the PFL guys, but I did side with Parnasse here. Now moving down to bantamweight, when I had been doing this video, previous times, it was pretty easy to just pencil in Patchy Mix here. I thought he was one of the best fighters overall outside the UFC and definitely in the bantamweight division. Now that Patchy Mix is in the UFC, I don't think there's like a clear next guy. I ended up going with Rafian Stotts here. So he has a 21-2 record. His only career losses have come to Merab Dvalishvili and Patchy Mix. He has 2 title wins in Bellator. He's 9-1 in Bellator / the PFL. Fairly well-rounded, 4 knockouts, 5 submission wins. You could also give a shout out to Magomed Magomedov. He had a very, very close fight against Patchy Mix in Patchy Mix's last fight. Now, before joining the UFC, you could definitely, make the argument that Magomedov won that fight. So he would definitely be in the mix here. I mean, you could throw Sergio Pettis' name out there. There's a lot of dudes here, but ended up going with Rafian Stotts. And then at flyweight, since we have had Mighty Mouse retiring and then Kyoji Horiguchi signed with the UFC, had to pull out of his first fight back, but still believe he's with the organization, I ended up going with Yuya Wakamatsu. He is the one championship flyweight champ. He's coming off a KO win against Adriano Moraes. If you guys remember, Adriano Moraes is the only man to finish Demetrius Johnson, and so picking up a knockout win against him is super impressive. He's currently on a 4-fight win streak, so Yuya is my pick here for flyweight. Then getting into a few of the women's weight classes, women's featherweight, I went with Chris Cyborg. This was going to be between the winner of the Chris Cyborg-Larissa Pacheco fight. Cyborg won that one, so obviously have to give her the nod here. She is 28-2 as a pro. I think probably one of the most underrated MMA fighters of all time. I think when people hear Chris Cyborg, they just think about that Amanda Nunes fight. Like I said, she is 28-2 as a pro. She lost her UFC debut. So in her last 29 fights, her only loss has come to Amanda Nunes. She was 7-0 in the Bellator, / PFL. All of those were title wins. Hasn't lost since 2018, and she's coming off of actually back-to-back KOs in boxing. So mixing over to the boxing scene, but still, in my opinion, the best women's featherweight outside the UFC. Then for bantamweight, it's just really not a thing outside the UFC, so I don't even have anyone here. Women's flyweight, definitely one of the best fighters in this entire video, and potentially the person I'd be most interested in seeing in the UFC. Maybe I'll throw Francis back in there, but women's flyweight, Dakota Ditcheva. I think she's the best flyweight in the world. Some people, might strongly disagree with that. They're going to side with Valentina Shevchenko. Maybe they think Wei Li moving up would be the best, but the argument is always, right, like she hasn't faced the quality of competition. She hasn't faced, someone like Valentina Shevchenko, but we saw her take on Taila Santos, someone who gave Valentina a very, very tough test. A lot of people think that fight was actually a robbery and that Taila Santos won. Dakota Ditcheva, just beat the brakes off of Taila Santos, defended all the takedowns, butchered her to the body, finished her in the second round by knockout. Ditcheva is 14-0 as a pro, 9-0 in the PFL, and she has elite finishing upside for this women's flyweight division, which is very rare to see. In those 14 wins, 13 are by finish, 12 knockouts, and 1 submission win. One time going to the decision. She won the PFL tournament with 4 knockouts. She is booked to fight in July. It does seem like at some point she's going to make the jump to the UFC. It's like she's kind of already run through all the names that she could potentially fight in the PFL. So would love to see Dakota Ditcheva challenge for that UFC flyweight title. But right now, we'll continue to watch her in the PFL. And then for women's strawweight, the final weight class here, I went with Jingneng Yang. She is ONE's strawweight champion. She has a 19-2 record as a pro. She has 8 strawweight title wins, and her only loss in the last 10 years came against Angela Lee. So, aside from Angela Lee, who is retired from MMA, I think Zhang is, probably the best option here. So she is going to be my pick for women's strawweight. And that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Went through every weight class. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you want to give some other dudes some shout outs, would love to hear it. If you enjoy, hit the like button, subscribe. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.